Hello, all my fight fans. Welcome to our UFC show with Bookmakers Review. I'm your host, Lee Martin, joined by the legendary man himself, David Manyun. Now, this upcoming weekend, we have UFC Vegas 44 Rob Font versus Jose Aldo on Saturday, December 4th at the UFC Apex. And in today's show, we will break down 5 fights on the main card and also share with you our favorite prelim pick. But before we begin the show, please be sure to tap those like and subscribe buttons so you're always up to date with all new VMR content. Now let's get this show on the road and just jump into our main card breakdown. The first fight that we have on the main card will be Brendan Allen versus Chris Curtis. At BetOnline, Allen is minus 340 and Curtis is plus 280. Now, Dave, how rude am I? I hope you're absolutely lovely today. Now, if you can share with us your breakdown and pick for this first fight, that would be amazing.
Yeah, I'm back. We're back. It's been a while, but it feels good. And you know what? It's a perfect card to get back on the road with, because from top to bottom, and I'm not even over exaggerating, a lot of these fights could make it onto a UFC pay-per-view. There's a lot of upcoming fighters, and Brendan Allen and Chris Curtis, they're two of those guys. We got Louisiana strong Brendan Allen. He's been accepting fight replacements, and I respect fighters that do that, because, you know, you're there, you're in the gym, and you're preparing for one guy, and then they fall out, and then they get another opponent, and then they fall out. It started with Brad Tavares, he had to pull out, and then Roman Dolidze had to pull out, and now Allen's facing a guy in Chris Curtis. It's definitely a tough fight for him, but Allen is 5-1 in the UFC. His only loss in the middleweight division is to top contender Sean Strickland and part-time psychopath as well. And he made the most of his BJJ black belt on Dana White Contender Series with a rear naked choke. Then he followed suit in his UFC debut against Kevin Holland with a rear naked choke. And since this time, we've watched Allen blossom really on the feet, and he's become more and more comfortable in his striking offense. Now, last time out, Allen faced that strength and durability of Punahele Soriano, and he made great use of his kicking techniques, throwing 1-2s with a nice mixture of feints to then go high or low to the body with them leg kicks. And you know, I was really surprised to see how evenly played out the fight was on the feet. Soriano had that power, whilst it was Allen's precision and diversity in his strikes that really was the difference maker for him. We saw no grappling in that fight, and it was just a shock. And Allen walked away with the victory. Who prior to that, he was mainly known for his grappling and that BJJ black belt. And I anticipate a similar style of matchup with Chris Curtis here. The man whose power can easily match Soriano, as witnessed when he flattened Phil Hawes in his UFC debut not so long ago. It's a quick turnaround for Chris Curtis. Fair play to him as well for taking this fight and stepping in on short notice. But Allen, you know, he tends to throw his shots and then be available to hit after he's through his shots. And he took one too many strikes from Soriano for my liking. But I did notice that his coaches and his corner, they picked up on that. And it's after his combinations have landed, he just needs to move off the center line, because that Chris Curtis and his power shots, they are no joke. They are no joke at all. I did pick Phil Hawes in that fight, and Phil Hawes was looking great up until that eventual knockout. Now, the weakness of Chris Curtis, I think, is going to be found on the ground. I don't want Allen to be holding some false sense of security from that Soriano fight, because from a technical standpoint, there aren't many guys who are going to outbox Chris Curtis. Now, the problem with Chris Curtis is that he takes his time, like he did in the Phil Hawes fight. He doesn't rush. He reads the situations. Everyone was celebrating Phil Hawes' dominance, and then that knockout came. So I think he needs to get a bit more into the fight a bit sooner this time around. Now, if it was a 5-round fight, I think Chris Curtis is the type of guy who'd be very difficult to defeat. and he rolls well with the punches that are incoming, but he also does tend to take shots clean in order to give one back. He's got a nice jab, fundamental 1-2s, often lead to an uppercut. And with more activity, I can see him being a problem. With that said, this is a 3-rounder. And Curtis's career losses have been against proficient grapplers, and I expect Allen to take this grappling path, especially with them amazing MMA minds at Sanford MMA. And I think if he does take this route, it's a submission or decision victory in the bag for Brendan Allen. The problem is when we look at the odds, and that's what we're here for. We're here for the betting picks and the odds. They keep rising, and I just don't want to play these odds on Brendan Allen. They're too high for me. I do think he's going to win. I mean, if you're forced to, he could be a good parlay piece, but with that power of Curtis, you never know. And I'd need these odds to be way lower for me to be making a punt and placing my money on this fight.
There's definitely more value on this card too. But if you guys do want to add like Brendan Allen for sure into a parlay or something, again, at BetOnline, he's minus 340. But if I'm looking at all these other books, Heritage has him at minus 340, Pinnacle minus 353. So again, for me personally, I'm going to stay away from this one. But again, BetOnline, Allen minus 340, Curtis plus 280. But let's move on to the next fight. We have light heavyweight Jimmy Crute versus Jamahal Hill. At BetOnline, Jim Crute is minus 162 and Hill is plus 142. Now, Dave, for your breakdown and pick for this next matchup.
Yeah, another incredible. I mean, we look at Jimmy Crute's last fight against Anthony Smith, and he was taking down Anthony Smith with one working foot. The Australians wrestling, it really is second to none. And when I look at this division, I don't believe there's many fighters at this weight class who can compete with him in this one particular area. And additionally to that, he passes his opponent's guard so fluently, and he allows that jiu-jitsu black belt to finish his fights way more often than not. I think with Jamahal Hill, the game plan's already written here for him. He's going to want to take advantage of his long length, make the best use of them probing jabs. They often create setups, for a mixture of combinations, and he unleashes head to the body beautifully, up top, down below. He does that great. And look, Crute is no slouch on the feet either, and it's quite similar to Brendan Allen, where Crute's striking just seems to be getting better and better. And I think he will want Hill in this fight. I think he'll want Hill to believe, a striking matchup is about to take place. That we're going to stand here and we're going to strike for 15 minutes. But I'm telling you now, once that opening becomes available, Crute is going to change levels and he's going to drag Hill into his world. I was curious and I was looking at the takedown percentages, and he has an 80% takedown accuracy through his 6 UFC bouts. Now, usually if it was, 2 or 3, 80%, you could put it to look, but through his 6 UFC fights, he's got an 80% takedown accuracy. I cannot envision Jamahal Hill's, lesser experience providing the takedown defense worthy of fending off Crute's wrestling accuracy. Now, look, the obvious here, Hill's got a 79-inch reach, and that's going to be a problem for anyone. Crute is usually the bigger man in the cage. He's not going to be the bigger man on Saturday, but it's not all the time, but Hill can often have this lethargic approach, and if he's going to give Crute enough time, this fight's going to end up on the ground. I don't like Hill's choice of shots sometimes as well. A lot of single shots. And when he's kicking, there's no setups behind the kicks. These approaches, I think they're going to cost Hill against Crute and that elite grappling skill set. And with those single shots, particularly the kicks, I think they're going to be completely removed altogether, because if you're throwing kicks at Crute, he's going to take you down. He's now got 2 working feet. So it's a rough situation for him. I mean, it didn't take long for Paul Craig to hand Hill his first career loss. Pulled guard, wrapped the arm. Hill's toughness, disregarded a dislocated arm. And to be honest, Hill was lucky the damage was kept at a minimum, because Paul Craig really did rag his arm in every single position you can imagine, every angle, every degree possible. And Hill's toughness is scary. I will say that his toughness is scary. I think if Crute will get to the ground at some point, but if Crute does get it to the ground and he looks for submission, Hill's not the type of guy who's going to tap. I think he could put him in a Kimura, rear naked choke, heel hook, guillotine, anything. And after watching Hill have his arm dislocated and then continue fighting, and then after the bell rung, sit there like, oh, damn, instead of being in pain. I mean, I know adrenaline comes into play, but that was a scary sight. Usually when you see that happen, guys are wincing in pain. But yeah, it's got to be Crute for me. Crute's level of grappling can certainly match Craig, because we've already seen him defeat the Scot via Kimura. I know MMA math doesn't work, but if Crute's grappling was that good against Craig, and Craig's grappling was easily initiated against Hill, what do you really think is going to happen here? And at this price, I like this price. Give me the Aussie. Give me the Aussie. Give me him all day long. A submission win for Crute, I think, is highly possible. And I wouldn't even count out his punching power either, because Hill might be disregarding that aspect, but Crute, he hits like a truck. But I am going to play this one safe, and it's a simple money line wager for me, considering our betting value is not bad at all.
No, and it's definitely much better than the odds on Brendan Allen. So again, at BetOnline, Jimmy Crute is -162, and John Mahal Hill is +142. But let's move on to the next fight. We have lightweight Clay Guida versus Leonardo Santos. At BetOnline, Santos is -185 and Guida is +160. Dave, I'd love to hear your breakdown and pick for this next fight.
Oh, now when I look at this fight card, it's quite puzzling, because I'm not really sure. I know, Clay Guida is a household name for the OG UFC fans, but anybody that came into this sport, post McGregor era, they don't know Clay Guida. I'm not really sure why he's so up on the main card. It is what it is. But here's a funny one. What do Nate Diaz, Rafael dos Anjos, Anthony Pettis, and BJ Penn all have in common? They've all lost to Clay the Carpenter Guida. Now that's 3 former champions out of the 4 that Guida has notched on his record. And yeah, they were at different times, and not all of them names were peaking at the time Guida beat them. But the 39-year-old Guida here has got a style of fighting that's gifted him 36 victims on his pro record. His style is gritty, undesirable to some, but when Guida grabs a hold of your leg or your waist, breaking the clasp of this man's hands is not an easy task. Guida, he always wants to drown his opponents, pressure them with strikes, and then it's going to be the inevitable takedown attempt. Now, the UFC have undoubtedly handed Guida some favourable matchups in recent times. They've allowed him to fight guys around his age and his experience. And so they should more often, instead of feeding their veterans that have been fighting for the company to the wolves, which they do way too often. Now, we got Santos here, and this guy really is an anomaly at age 41. If you were to guess his age based on his cage presence, that number could land anywhere between 30 to 35. But 41 years old, no way. No way does this guy look like a 41-year-old. And I think he's lying. I don't think he is 41. But the problem with Santos is the Brazilian has been with the UFC all the way back to the Ultimate Fighter Brazil 2 in 2013. Huge bouts of inactivity. They have stunted his growth in the company. 7-1 record for the UFC, but he hasn't fought enough to keep himself relevant. He's a tricky competitor. He's got punching power, grappling ability. He's awesome off his back, and he's got excellent right hand. which notably knocked out Stevie Ray after a 3-year layoff. He came back and he flattened Stevie Ray, which is a great fight. Most importantly, I think the ring rust, it just doesn't exist for this guy. Now, this inactivity may be a concern for some, but if you watch Santos coming back off any type of layoff, especially that 3-year one, there is no ring rust for this guy. It doesn't exist, and he doesn't fight like an aging fighter. And I think because of the lesser amount of fights he's taken, his durability is still up there with the best of them. And he's training alongside the likes of Jose Aldo at Nova União in Brazil. I think he's going to be fully prepared for this fight. And I can envision the striking offense of Santos, his Muay Thai is going to dictate this one. His counter strikes, they're going to be there. Once he finds his range on Guida, and he gauges Guida's range. Clay Guida's grappling, which is his main tool, it's going to be nullified. And, you know, if we're lucky, we might get a quick turnaround from Santos again, and we might see him more regular. But for me, I'm going to have to fade the old dog here, Clay Guida. There has been, beat Michael Johnson, but outside of that, there has been a very questionable, decline in his performances of late. And they have been handed him, I wouldn't say easy matchups, but, again, like this matchup, an older fighter, someone that is closer to his level. But for me, it's got to be Santos. And again, it's a betting price here. It's one I can get behind, and I can play Santos straight up without having to look for a prop or, a finished prop or a decision prop to find some value, because there's value to be had on the straight money line. So, yeah, for me, it's Santos to get the victory.
Well, again, at BetOnline, Santos is minus 185 and Clay Guida is plus 160. But let's move on to the co-main. We have lightweight Brad Ridell versus Rafael Fiziev. At BetOnline, Fiziev is minus 120 and Ridell is plus 100. Dave, if you can share with us your breakdown and pick for the co-main, that would be wonderful.
This fight is tough. I don't want to. It's my job, so I have to. I'll be straight up with you. I've leaned Fiziev. I've leaned Fiziev already. Mm-hmm. But they're so well matched, these two. This is just perfect matchmaking by the UFC. These two have even trained together at Tiger Muay Thai. It's just, overall, it's a hard fight to break down. Now, Fiziev, predominantly attacks with that Muay Thai style base. He's got some incredible switch kicks. They will be coming high and low. You won't be able to read them all the time. And they are coming with some serious speed. Moving forward in the fight, I think Fiziev is going to find success in having more output. And, in a defensive... In a defensive positioning style, I think his lateral movement could be the dictator in this one, and in a contest where I do think it's going to go all 3 rounds, it's going to come down to the wire with output. Like the judges are going to need their glasses on, because this is going to be a hard one to judge, and this could be a split decision either way. It's one of the most challenging fights that I've probably analysed all year, if not all time. Ridell, his power and his defense, his hands are always up. He's good at moving out of the pocket. He's good at landing his strikes and moving out of the way. I think with that and his power, that's where his advantages is lay. And, they are both kickboxers, Muay Thai fighters, but Ridell, he doesn't really throw as many kicks as Fiziev. But when it comes to boxing, that's where Ridell is way more proficient, especially when he gets close and is inside the pocket. And if Fiziev wants to go to war, Ridell is the type of person that is going to give him what he wants. I think here Fiziev is going to have the speed and the kicking advantage. And then Ridell's going to have that power, durability, and defensive advantage on his side. For Fiziev, I think he needs to keep it at range, utilize them kicks, where I think he's the better kicker. And I think then it's down to the output. When it comes to speed, I do think Fiziev is faster. He is going to have to watch out for Ridell's power because he could get flattened. We've seen Fiziev come close on a few occasions. But hesitantly, and I say this with caution, hesitantly, I'm going to side with Rafael Fiziev, taking a unanimous decision, split decision. I think, as I said, the speed and the output is going to give him the tiny advantage that he needs to get a nod from the judges. Well, I certainly don't feel sorry for the three judges calling this one. And when it comes to betting, I think maybe it's juiced a little bit, but I think maybe an over 2.5 may be your best bet. Or if you really do want to boost that value, Fiziev by decision is a prop that I can support as well.
Yeah. No, I do like Rafael Fiziev for this one. And even at other books, like I'm at BMR right now looking at every game, and they're priced at -125 for Fiziev and Ridell at -105. So it is going to be a close one, but I'm not going to touch this one. It's going to be a fun one for sure, though. But let's go on to the main event because time is catching up with us. We have bantamweight Rob Font versus Jose Aldo at Bet Online. Rob Font is -138 and Aldo's +118. Dave, if you could share with us your top pick for the main event, that would be amazing.
Yeah, off the bat, I'll give you the pick straight away. I'm going to go with the dog in this one. But much like the co-main event, this is an incredibly well-matched fight. The styles of these two are not the same, but they are both incredibly good at what they do. Aldo is completely diverse in his skill set. His career, well, majority of his life has been spent with that Muay Thai style striking. That Muay Thai offense, his jabs, knockout power, speed. It's pretty much always been there. We are seeing Aldo slow down a little bit later on in his career, but he's still got them skills there, and they don't seem to be depleting as much as most guys his age with as many fights as him usually do. To say, a lot of people will say that Font is one of the best boxers in the division, but so is Aldo. He is one of the best boxers in this division, and he is also incredible with his leg kicks. His wrestling is good, and he's a world-class jiu-jitsu practitioner. This is something that isn't spoken about because Aldo doesn't really go for that game plan. I'm not sure why, because there's been fights, there's been moments and situations where his grappling could have saved him and won fights for him. He's got a BJJ black belt, and I think he has 2 submissions throughout his whole career, which it's crazy because his scrambling abilities and his wrestling offense is great. And these extra tools that he has, I think if he can fall back on them in certain parts of this fight, this is what's going to give him an advantage against a guy like Rob Font. Font, he works behind his jab. That is it. He's so good with that jab. But he steps into it a lot. And when you step into a jab, you're leaving that lead leg open. And with a guy like Jose Aldo, who will kick your calf into the crowd, I think this is the perfect situation for Aldo to just piece up that leg. And I think the serious power and these tools of Aldo, they could put the American in trouble this weekend. Them leg kicks of Aldo, they're so vicious. And because Font is always setting up his attacks behind that jab, it's going to be tough. And again, when we talk about the jab of Rob Font, Aldo is really good at parrying straight shots. He's really good at it. For me, the leg kicks, overhand right, and even the takedowns, if he can bring this into his game, they're all going to be there for Aldo in a counter-attacking blueprint for him. Rob Font, his most significant path is going to be that boxing offense. He doesn't really present anything else because he's so good at it. But then he's got durability and cardio on his side. this fight for me, and I put this in one of my written breakdowns, I think it's going to be down to the fight intelligence of Aldo. If Aldo can choose to take the path that I've discussed and mix up his skill set, I don't think Rob Font stands a chance. But if he's just going to stand there, like we saw him do with Max Holloway, and give the guy opposite him the fight they want, this could be Rob Font's fight to steal, and that's why I think he is the betting favourite. And it's a shock to see that these two are the same age. I think when Rob Font made his professional debut, Aldo had already won the WEC featherweight title. He'd already come into the UFC and won the UFC featherweight title, and it was something 20 odd fights into his pro career. But they are the same age, and the longevity is always a concern for Jose Aldo. When is that fight going to come where we finally see him get completely obliterated? I don't think it's going to be this weekend. I don't think Rob Font is that guy, despite how good his jab is and how good his boxing offense is. Jose Aldo is world class, and I'm not going to underestimate him until I see a serious decline. This slight, career trajectory downtrend that is on, it's not all the way there yet. And, the winner of this fight could be next in line for a title shot. And I know that Aldo is going to be hungry to be a two-division champion in the UFC, and a champion one last time. For me, it's obviously, I say, the game plan and the leg kicks of Jose Aldo. I think Rob Font's, his eagerness to have everything behind that jab just gives me a feeling that the Aldo can rip away that front leg early, take away any of Rob Font's power, and hopefully our fan favorite, Jose Aldo can have his hand raised at the weekend, and he is the betting underdog, which is another reason for me to like this position. I do worry in rounds 4 and 5. I'm not gonna lie, I do worry in them rounds, but 1, 2, and 3 could easily be Aldo's, and that's how I feel. And we're getting such good value. I'll put my faith in the OG here, teaching the new boy Font how it goes down at the top of the division.
Yeah, no, the dog odds in Aldo are actually very nice. I love that value. But again, straight up, Rob Font is minus 138 and Aldo is plus 118. Now, that was our main card. Let's jump into our top prelim pick. And honestly, I'm pulling it up right now, and I think this is a pretty good-looking prelim card, if I must say. We have Maki Pitolo versus Dusko Todorovic, Menno Cape, Zalga Zumagulov, Cheyenne Bays, Malcolm Martin, Alonzo Menafield versus William Knight. It goes on and on. But if I had to choose one, I definitely like Cheyenne Bays versus Mallory Martin, and I will side with Bays. She is minus 182 at Bet Online. But Dave, I would love to hear what your top prelim pick for this weekend, very briefly, please.
Yeah, you took the words out of my mouth, really. It was actually hard to decide on a prelim pick because the prelims, they are so stacked. But for me, it's going to be the debuting Mirzakhanov here. The Russian made his first appearance under the UFC banner, but on Dana White Contender Series. Wiped the floor with his opponent in the first round. Nasty uppercut. And this guy is something special. He was meant to join the UFC in 2017, but he popped failed drug test. I'm not sure what happened after that, but it went silent. But in his professional MMA career, he continued knocking guys out. Now, we should know here that he's giving up a 10-inch reach advantage to Jared Van der Aar. And you'll probably look at the price, and I think this is why the betting odds, they opened at minus 350 for Mirzakhanov. And now they're around the 200 area. And I think this has a lot to do with people thinking that he cannot deal with a heavyweight fighter. He is usually a light heavyweight, and he was originally scheduled for a light heavyweight bout. But last minute notice, they switched this fight up. Jared stepped in. It got turned into a heavyweight bout, and Mirzakhanov, he took it. Why did he take it? Because the majority of his career, in fact, I don't think he's been in a contest where he has owned a size advantage. He doesn't need it. This guy's striking is incredible. He reminds me a little bit of DC on the way DC strikes. We get on the inside and piece them up. He is so light-footed. He's got excellent combinations, and the power just comes from out of nowhere. You don't expect it because he's not that big, but it's certainly there. If you have UFC Fight Pass or YouTube, or even go onto my Twitter account, I've posted a video of some of his highlights. He's truly in bantamweight, and he's got the power of a heavyweight. So what else do you need? I do think he's really going to impress and show the fans that he can handle any of these big boys, no matter how tall they are.
For sure. I'm just looking at Bet Online again. Murzakanov is -210, but at Pinnacle he's -207. A little bit better, but if you want to throw him into a parlay. But that is our show. Thank you guys so much for joining us. And Dave, thank you so much for dropping your knowledge. If you guys have any questions or want to chit-chat some MMA with us, definitely hit us up on Twitter. You can follow Dave at @dmanion_ and myself at @LeeMartinSports. And while you're at it, definitely give BMR some love too and give them a follow at BMR Reviews. And to make sure you stay up to date with all of our UFC content as well as all of the other shows with BMR, be sure to hit those like and subscribe buttons. Now I wish you all the best of luck on all of your wagers, and we'll catch you next week for UFC 269.